Hello developers, welcome to day 5 of the 30 days of JavaScript challenge. Today presents another day for us to engage with the challenges and further enrich our understanding of JavaScript concepts. Let's dive in and make the most out of this learning journey. Today's challenge says, given an integer array R and a mapping function fn, return a new array with a transformation applied to each element. The returned array should be created such that the returned array, each index is equals to that function called with that array index I, that item of that array, and that index. We'll see how we'll solve this. And you are told that you not use the Array.map method. There's some examples there. The first example says if the array is 1, 2, 3, and the function is a +1 function, that means it takes any number and adds 1. The output should be 2, 3, 4, because each item of this array will be increased by 1 because of this +1 function. Example 2 says if the array is the same 1, 2, 3, and the function is +i, that means the item plus the index. It will return 1, 3, and 5, because you know that array has 0 index, so 1 plus 0 will be 1. That's why this first index is 1. Then 2 plus, this is index 1, so 2 plus 1 will be 3. It's here 3. This is index 2. 3 plus 2 will be 5. It's here 5. So that's the second example. Then the third example says that if the array is 10, 20, and 30, and the function passed is a constant function that returns 42, regardless of the parameter called with it. So the output will be 42, 42, 42, because each item of the array will be replaced by 42. The constraints of this are the length of the array should be between 0 and 1000, and the index of the array should be between -109 to 109, and the function should always return a number. So that is today's challenge. Before we solve today's challenge, we'll first learn some JavaScript concepts, and the first concept that we'll learn is about arrays. So an array is a fundamental data structure used in programming to store a collection of elements. Like for example, here I have an array called R. It is a collection of numbers, and the numbers are 4, 7, and 8. And each number here is an item of this array. And arrays are 0 indexed. That means that this first element here is index 0, the next one is index 1, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that we learn is how to add an element in an array. You can use the array.push method to add an element at the end of the array. For example, let us just do it practically. So if you say array.push, let me add 5 at the end of this array. Then also I'll log it so that you can see it. So if I log this array and I run this code, now you can see our array now has this extra 5 here. And that was possible with this array.push. But if I wanted it to be added at the beginning, I'll use the unshift. Array.unshift, like that. Now if I run this code again, you can see now our 5 is added at the beginning. So array.push is used to add an item at the end of the array, and array.unshift is used to add an item at the beginning of the array. Also, you can remove elements from an array. For example, if I want to remove the last element of this array, I'll use array.pop, like that. If I say array.pop, the last element of this array will be removed. So if I run this code now, you can see here it returned 4 and 7. That means that this last digit was removed. And if you want to remove the first digit here, you can use the array.shift. And array.shift removes the first digit of the array. So if I run this code now, it will return 7 and 8 because this 4 was removed. So those are the 4 basic methods. These are the 4 basic array methods that we'll use to solve this challenge. So to learn more about array methods, you can check our Learn JavaScript playlist. I'll put the link in the video description. The next concept that we'll learn is about loops, and specifically the for loop. So let's say I'll return my array there. So I have my array that has, let's say, 3, 7, and 8, like that. Then I want to look through this array and print each element of the array. You can do that using the for loop. So I'll create a basic, this is the general for loop. I call it the C for loop because this is the one that most of us who learn programming start with. It's the basic for loop. So I say, first I usually call it ICU because I first initialize the variable. So I initialize I to 0. Then I create the condition. The condition wanted to run as long as I is less than the array.length. So I'll say array.length like that. Then the next one I call it I. This is I. This one is C. Then this one is U. U is always the update. So I'll update this like that. So this is the basic for loop. Then I want to log. So this one it will first I've initialized the value of I to 0. Then I want to check if the value of I is less than the length of my array. Then I want to increase the value of I every time this code has run. So you want to log the array. So I want to log the items of the array. So I'll log array index I like that. So the first time, since I is 0 and 0 is less than array.length here is 3. So 0 is less than 3. So this code will run and it will print 3 in the console. Then the value of I will be incremented to 1. Then it will come and compare 1 to 3 and so on until it will print all these 3 elements of the array. So I can run this code to confirm. And you can see indeed in the console it printed 3, 7, and 8. It printed all the values of the array. Also you can use the for of. So for of I'll say let I of array like that. This one is for of. And this one for of, if you just log I, let me just log I first so that you can see. If you log I, you can see, wait for it, you can see it returns the actual element. So here in for of, I is the actual element, not the index, the actual element. And there's also for in, where for in returns the index. So if I run this code and I log I for in, you see it will run 0, 1, 2. So if I use for in and I want each element of this array, I'll have to use the array, then this square brackets here like that for me to print each of the values. And you can see indeed it printed the values. So this, I don't know if I was quick or slow. You can just rewind if you didn't get it, or you can visit our Learn JavaScript playlist to see the for loop, for in, and for of, and how they differ. But this is the concept that we'll use to solve our challenge. The next concept that we're going to learn is the Array.map method. So Array.map method takes an array, modifies it, then returns a new array. So let us see it in action. So let's say I have an array here, an array of numbers that has numbers 3, 5, and 7. Then I'll use the Array.map on that method, on that array like that. So Array.map takes in a callback function as a parameter. So here there'll be a callback function. So a callback function is a function that is a parameter of another function. If say this Array.map is a function. So this is a callback function. So let's say it takes a callback function called double, and the work of this double is just to double a number. So I'll just create it down here. So I'll create a function called double, and the work of this double is just to double a number. So this callback function takes item, index, and array as index, and the array as parameters. This is the callback function of the map method So it takes item, index, and array. So item is each individual item in this array. The index is the index of the indices of this array. Like index, this one is index 0, index 1, and index 2 already talked about. And the array, it's the whole array. And each one of each will use it as its use depending on what the function does. Like this double function just takes the number and doubles it. So I'll just use the item. So what we'll do in this function, we'll just return the item times 2. So that's why you say it doubles the item. And if you run this method and this array.map, it returns a new array. So before you run, first you have to store this in a new array. So I'll just store it in a new array. I'll call it new array, like that. New array, new r. I'll call it new r. So now if I log this new array, new r, like that, and run this code, you can see now our array is 6, 10, and 14. It's 6 because it was 3 times 2, that was 6, 5 times 2 was 10, and 7 times 2 was 14. Personally, this array, this map method, while I was learning JavaScript, I found it a little bit tricky to understand it, but let me just explain it step by step. This map method loops through this array. Now you have access to this 3 using the item. So in the first iteration, just like the for loop, in the first iteration, the value of item is 3. So it will take 3 times 2 and it will return 6. In the second iteration, the value of item is 5. It will take 5 times 2 and return 10. In the third iteration, it will be 7. So 7 times 2 return 14. And it returns this array.map returns a new array that has the same length as the original array. So it will only loop 3 times because there's 3 items. That's why it will return a new array with only 3 items. That is 6, 10, and 7. So that is how the array.maps works. So this function, instead of writing it down here, you can just move it inside here, like that. You can move this function here for it to look like that. And it will still work. I placed it at the outside first for you to see it clearly, but now you can see it still works. But now you can place it inside the map. And since now we know about the arrow function, you can use the arrow function here. You can remove this function keyword. You can remove this name. And you can add an arrow here, like that. An arrow like that. And we said in arrow function, if function body contains one element, you can remove the return keyword and remove this curly braces like that, and it will be just a one line and also this semicolon here, and it will just be a one line function. And also here, since you're not using this index and array, you can just omit them as well, so it will look something like this. And this is how you'll commonly see the map method being written. But remember, you can still have access to the index and the array as you have seen before. I've taken some time for you to understand this map method because this is one of the key concepts that you need to use in JavaScript. Since now you have already learned the key concepts, we can now solve our challenge. First, I'll start by writing my test cases. So I'll write this function. Let me just copy that function and paste it there. Then I'll copy this array and put it up here. I'll declare it const array is equal to 1 to 3. Then I'll copy my other function, for example 2. I'll just copy this function, paste it there. Then I copy my third function, for example 3. I copy it, I paste it there. So these are the functions that we'll use to check if these are like the test cases that we'll use to check if our code is running okay. So now, since I have my test cases, I'll go back to the challenge. So I'm supposed to create when you're given an integer and an integer array, this one here is already given, and a mapping function fn. So these are the 3 functions that we'll use. So these are the functions, but any of them, not all of them at once, any of them, like this one is a mapping function, it should return a new array with the transformation applied on it. Okay, so for me, here it says please solve it without using the inbuilt array.map. But since you have learned the array.map, you can just see the solution with the array.map, and then you can see the other solution. So for this challenge, first you have to create a function. So I can call it just map, because you can see down here, where is it? You can just call it any, but you can see they call it map. So I'll just call it map. It's a function. I'll use the anonymous function syntax like that. So this function, it will take an array and a function fn, as seen here. Function fn and an array. Then it should return a new array. So you have said it should return a new array with the transformation applied. But since you have learned about map, you have said map takes an array, then does something with it using the callback function, then returns a new array. So basically, this is just a map function. In short, you're told to create something that works like map. That's why you're told don't use the array.map, because array.map does exactly the same thing. So if I were to use array.map, I could just return the array.map. Then I use the function fn as the callback function, like that, and this will solve the challenge. That is if I were to use array.map. So I can just use each test case to see. So for example, if I call this function map, let me just log it directly. Let me log, if I call map, I call it with array r and function. Let me start with this +1 function. I call it like that. And if I run this code, you can see indeed my elements were increased by 1. And that is the expected output, for example, 1. And the same will work for example 2 and 3. So let me just do 2 and 3 in one go. So I'll just copy this function 2 here. I put it here. Then this function 3 constant, I copy it, I put it there. So these are the 3 test cases, and if I run, you can see indeed they worked. This one, we already checked it. This for the example 2, it was taking, you can see example 1 worked, it returns 2, 3, and 4, and that is what we got here, 2, 3, and 4. Example 2 to return 1, 1, 3, and 5, and that's what we got, 1, 3, and 5. So for example 2, it takes the number and each item and the index, then takes item plus index. So this, it should take 1 plus 0, that is 1, then 2 plus 1, that is 3, then 3 plus 2, that is 5. That is function 2. Then the last function, that is constant, returns 42 regardless. So it should return 3 42s. So basically, this is how the function should work. But they have told us we don't use the map function. So you have to implement the functionality of map here without actually using the map. So that's where the challenge is. If you have understood how map works, this is just simple, and we can use a for loop to do the work of map, and that is what we'll do next. So instead of using the map method, you can use the for loop that we learned to solve this challenge. So I can loop through this array. You have seen how you can loop an array through a for loop. So I'll just use the for. I'll use the for in. So I'll say let I in array. And you have seen the difference between the for of and the for in. In for in, the I is the index. In for of, if this one was for of, the I is the item. So here this I is the index since I'm using the for in. So yeah. So for I in array, now I loop through each item of the array. Then for each item, and to call this function here. So I'll call that function. This is any function that will be called, like here, let me use this +1 first. So this function, I'll call it with the actual element. So I've said this I is the index, not the element. So the actual element will be array index I. But keep in mind, there's also this +I that takes the item and the index. So to make our function flexible, I'll allow it to accept both the item and the index. So our function will take two parameters like that. Then the value that this function will return, I need to store it in a new array. So I'll declare a new array here. So I'll say const, let me call it result. Initially it will be an empty array. Then now after this function has returned the value, and to store the value in this array. So I'll use the array.push method. So yeah. So here at the beginning, I'll say result. That is my array, result.push. So that it adds at the end. So that it can maintain the order. So yeah. Then after that, I'll have to return my new array. So I'll return my array called result like that. So you can run this code to check. So you can see indeed our function almost worked. The first one is okay, the last one is okay, but there's a problem with this. The second test here, it has failed because these ones are strings, but we expected numbers. That is because this for in treats this an array as an kind of like an object. So these keys they are strings, not numbers. Actually, if you're using TypeScript, this will throw an error at compile time. It will not run, it will throw an error at compile time. So for us to solve that, we can cast this one into a number. So I'll convert this into a number first. So I'll just use the number class here to convert it into a number first before passing it to this push. So I'll return my like that, then I'll save. So I'll run this code once more. Fingers crossed. I hope it will pass. Yeah, and indeed it passed. So you can see the first example. It should return. Let me just confirm. It should return 2, 3, and 4, and that is what is returned here. The second example, it should return 1, 3, and 5, and that's what is returned there. And the last example, it should return 42, 42, and 42, and that is what is returned. So yeah, that is the solution to this challenge. So see you in the next challenge tomorrow. Peace out.